right, Lambo's World of Sports featuring the Big Brother. There's a lot of upsets, really, or almost an upset, but this one was the biggest upset probably of the week because, ladies and gentlemen, the Florida Gators are not back. By the way, we have to stop this mess. This is not the Tim Tebow era. This is not 2008. This is not the Swamp Kings. All right, you don't have Urban Meyer as your head coach. All right. Florida had, like I said, Florida has really, really fallen off since Dan Mullen got fired. They were consistent. They had Kyle Trask, but this is a game, ladies and gentlemen, where Tennessee might be a little bit overrated now. All right, a lot of hype coming in from last season. With Joe Milton starting and them beating Clemson in the Orange Bowl game, spanked them. Not just beat them, they spanked them pretty bad. But this year, they struggled against UVA sort of in the first half until they pulled away. Then all of a sudden, Austin Peay, they only scored 30 points, and they struggled as well. But this is a game that really got exposed. Now you could say, "Oh, well, they're playing at home and all that stuff." I don't remember the last time Florida has beaten Tennessee, if I'm correct, or Tennessee beating Florida. I'm not sure, but this is a game that really concerns me. Can you explain your concerns for the University of Tennessee fans? And shout out to Sarah Blake. She's a queen of the SEC. She's a big Tennessee fan, and she was not pleased at all.
Yeah, so the concern for me comes down to Joe Milton. Everyone knows it's not like breaking news or anything that the Tennessee defense gives up yards and they give up points. Like, that's been a trend for the past few years. That's not like, I'm not breaking any news here by saying that. So when that's the case, your offense is the side that needs to overcome that deficit. And in the past, like with Hendon Hooker, they could. Joe Milton isn't Hendon Hooker. He's been in college for 5 years. He hasn't been able to hold down a job. And I think this year he has it because I don't know if they really trust the young dude that's behind him. He threw 58% in this game, QBR of only 52, and he threw an interception against a Florida defense that we saw struggle a lot with Bryson Barnes from Utah, who just got benched, and he followed up that game after the Florida game with a 31% completion percentage against a bad Baylor team. So I think that speaks a lot to, the deficits that the Tennessee defense has. Graham Mertz was efficient. He didn't turn the ball over, but he didn't take any deep shots. He didn't have to take any deep shots because Trevor Etienne rushed for 172 yards, averaging 7.5 yards a carry. And that's like I said, the defense is always a concern for Tennessee. It's up to the offense to overcome the deficit. And with Joe Milton at quarterback, like, I get it, he can throw the ball 80 yards, but in his 5 years in college now, he's done nothing to prove that throwing the ball 80 yards is something that can help his team win. I think it was Big Cat from Barstool who said, like, if you need Joe Milton to throw a 40-yard dot, he'll throw a 40-yard dot. If you need him to throw a 20-yard dot, he'll throw a 40-yard dot. Like, he can't really – it just seems like he can't control that cannon that he's got, and obviously the accuracy backs that up. He's had limited playing time before this year, but he's barely over 60%. Sometimes he's like barely under 60%. So 58% in this game is right on par with what he does, and that's just not enough to win SEC football. And I agree, Tennessee's probably overrated now. They fell 12 spots in the rankings this week, and that's after playing their first real competition of the year. They're coming up against South Carolina in 2 weeks, who just held Georgia to 24 points and had the lead at halftime. We'll get into that later. But, I don't know what's going to happen in that game. I'm not ready to make a prediction. But if they lose that game, and if they lose it in the fashion that they lost this game, I think it just solidifies that Joe Milton is not an SEC starting quarterback.
Well, that's a tough one because, like you said, they don't trust the backup. Ladies and gentlemen, Graham Mertz is a transfer from Wisconsin. Obviously, Wisconsin fired a coach middle of last year. So with this, Tennessee is very suspect. I think the offensive line is a little bit of a suspect. I think, as far as losing NFL guys as well, we get that, but this is college. You're going to have to find better talent. I'm just not sure about Tennessee. And, I was very, very high on Tennessee. And I understand, they were ranked way below LSU at the beginning of the season. We saw that LSU wasn't that good of a team as well. My concerns are, I think, very high, skyrocketed because, like you said, South Carolina in 2 weeks. You do got to play Georgia, second to last game of the year. Then you got to play Alabama. If Alabama can't figure out their quarterback spot, then they could beat them. But I think I trust Nick Saban. I'm not competitive about that. But we'll talk about that later. How they only put up 17 points against the University of South Florida. Here's the problem for Tennessee, by the way. 0 for 3 on fourth down. So when they really needed it on fourth down, they failed once again. They only rushed for 100 yards off 30 attempts, only 3.3 yards a carry. Is that decent in college football? Maybe, not really, no. I mean, maybe high school football. I mean, our coaches, we tell our players, if you can get 3 yards a carry, great. That's 3-3. Get yourself in a third one situation. But this is college. You have to, be a little bit different. The turnovers, it was only 1-0. But I think here's the problem: the penalties. 10 penalties for 79 yards. Florida only had 5. So when you get penalized, you're undisciplined. The time of possession was almost lopsided, or halfway lopsided, like the Eagles and Vikings game, where the Eagles had the ball for 40 minutes. Florida had the ball for 37 minutes. Tennessee only had the ball for 22 minutes. So Florida basically keep away. They played keep away from Tennessee, which is a very, very smart strategy. Like I said, Joe Milton, he had an interception. The run game could be a lot better, but who's their receivers? Joe Milton did lose a fumble, by the way, but who's their receivers? They had Brew McCoy. He had 5 attempts for 94 yards and a touchdown. The rest, Squirrel White had 3 for 68, and Deontay Thornton Jr. had 3 for 53. So who is that guy that's going to step up for, a Jalen Hyatt who's with the Giants? Like, who's going to step up? So the wide receiver core for Tennessee really needs to step up, by the way. The defensive line, oh, my God. It is suspect. Suspect, especially if you let – it's real suspect. So the defensive line needs work. I think the secondary is a little bit of trouble as well. I'm just very concerned. I'm not shocked that they beat them, just the fashion way they beat them, just how the game was played and how Florida beat Tennessee. They beat them by 1. Oh, it's not really a shocker. It's just the way they beat them, the time possession, the straight dominance. Because, Florida couldn't run the ball for 2 weeks. They couldn't run the ball in Utah. They played another sorry team. They probably ran the ball a little bit, but they couldn't run the ball for anything. So, like I said, Tennessee should be able to win next week. Y'all play UTSA. You play a little garbage team, but the next 4 games after that, like you said, it's tough. Like you said, South Carolina on the 30th of September. They have a bye week. They play Texas A&M. That's not easy. Texas A&M is not easy despite their struggles and whatnot. It's not easy. Then you go to Alabama, and then you play Kentucky. So those 4 games are not easy for Tennessee. But am I sold on Florida? No, not really. They're not back, by the way. They got 1 win, 2 wins. Congratulations, Florida, for upsetting them. I still think you're mediocre. You play Charlotte next week, so you should be able to win. You play Charlotte, and then your next 4 games is Kentucky, which you will take an L. I might have y'all lose to Vanderbilt, and then you play South Carolina, and then you play Georgia. So Florida, like I said, is going to be another 6-6 team. I'm not really worried. I'm just concerned about Tennessee. Florida is just they'll get wins here and there. Do you have any final thoughts on this game in particular?
Not really. I think we covered all the bases here. If Trevor Etienne and the O-line of Florida can – I mean, obviously expecting them to match a 172-yard game is pretty high expectation, so I'm not putting it up there. But I mean, he seems to be extremely talented. So I'm not gonna. I still think they're a 6-6 team, but I'm not gonna, shit on the offense too much. Graham Mertz played well, and if he can carry it over, maybe they get 7 wins. Maybe they win a bowl game, but I'm with you. I don't really have high expectations on them, and my expectations for Tennessee are just dropping every week.
Well, yeah, me too. Tennessee, ladies and gentlemen. Once you bring Sarah Blake Cheek back on, we might have to put some disturbing news in her because Tennessee is probably not the team, especially if they lose one more time, especially with that schedule that I just mentioned. But this is Lambo's World of Sports. The next episode will be a lot of interesting things. Recap of college football, and somehow, for some reason, Georgia escapes South Carolina. They were losing at some point, and then they came back. So, Lambo's World of Sports featuring the Big Brother, sponsoring Sideline Sports Network, by the way. So we'll be catching you in the next 5 minutes, the next episode. Total Pro Nation, Lambo's World of Sports, Sideline Sports Network. We will be back in the next 5 minutes.